Some people are sitting the everyday sesshin, a 7-day or however, anyway, it's a long sesshin. You sit a lot. And they're gonna be doing that next week. And some are gonna be doing it online, but the people who are doing it in person is you eat oryoki, you do this Zen ritual. And we're gonna do a little review of it today after Sangha. Anybody can stay. You can stay online if you want. It's people can go down rabbit holes with oryokis. We're gonna keep it really simple, and there's also a beautiful little book that I can also send you online if you're interested. So that will be probably 10 minutes or so after Sangha ends. We'll do that. On Thursday, this coming Thursday, is the spring equinox. It's really nice that it lands when we're landing here together. So we're going to do a little ritual, and you all are invited to bring a short poem or a short reading, and that will be included as part of it. Feels like spring is joyful and full of love and kindness, just the fact that it just keeps happening. And if you can look at a plum blossom and not feel some sense of joy in your heart, I probably should look again. But on the other hand, it's ephemeral. They're going to fall, so it's like whatever. But we'll celebrate the whole thing. So if you saw the newsletter that came out, the mid-month newsletter, which you can get by signing up online, it had something about this church where we meet, becoming a sanctuary church. I really like the minister, Pastor Benjamin. I think he's pretty passionate about this. And there's lots of ways people can connect to it if you want to. I'm really interested in joining an interfaith council. I wanted to do interfaith work for a long time. Looking at Barbara, who's a Quaker, who anyway, I'm looking forward to that. And I thought I would read just a really short thing from their statement. We will marshal the efforts and energies of our congregation and wider community in a spirit of hope, faith, inclusion, and love to help those targeted by fears, suspicion, bigotry, and hate. We will work alongside our families, friends, and neighbors to ensure the dignity and human rights of all people. So I was really pleased. I love when you follow a thread and you sort of don't know where you're going, and all of a sudden I looked in my bookshelf and I had completely forgotten that Zenju Earthling Manuel, who's an African-American teacher who I really respect in our lineage, wrote a book called Sanctuary. It's like, wow, how cool is that? Anyway, that's the way I think. So I'm going to share with you some of her thoughts about sanctuary. Her subtitle is A Meditation on Home, Homelessness, and Belonging, and a lot of it's very personal, her personal story, which I'm not going to share so much today, but it all weaves together. So let me start there. I mean, what is sanctuary? How do we be sanctuary? How do we be sanctuary to ourselves? How do we be sanctuary for the world? I think there's also in Buddhism the word refuge, which I think is very close, and we'll see that I think Zenju thinks the same thing, is how do we be refuge for ourselves? How do we be refuge for the world? How do we be refuge for each other? And what does this have to do with loving kindness? Because that's what we're focusing on. So That might give you a clue that maybe they're interconnected here. She says, Zenju says, in sanctuary, we learn that connectedness is the way home. Being connected to others, to earth, air, fire, water, and oneself is primal, and it is crucial for coexistence. Some deny needing other people or communities. Some deny needing other people or communities, but even they have to rely on others for clean water and decent soil to grow food and medicinal crops. We depend on a biological interaction between two people to arrive on this planet. Self-reliance doesn't exist in the universe where resources and strength are shared. Where interdependence is ignored in sanctuary, suffering ensues. The notion of home is sabotaged when individualism overpowers communal reality. Solo efforts towards happiness are impossible to sustain. So I'll just remind us that when we do loving kindness meditations, you always start with the self. You start wishing yourself well, and then you extend it out, and then you extend it out, and then you extend it out to the whole world. But if at any point you get shaky in sending love and kindness to somebody that you have a hostile feeling about, it's like you just come back and wish yourself well. But there's a recognition that you can't do this by yourself. I mean, there is no such thing, actually. So then she goes on to say, I'm selecting passages here. In a Tibetan Buddhist practice, you look at everyone as having been your mother in a past life. Maybe that in the West, that's maybe not just always so easy because we don't all naturally assume that we have this wonderful relationship with our mother. But you sort of get the feeling that we were born, we have these really deep, intimate relationships with everyone. This is a difficult practice if you are subject to hatred by others. The teaching is espousing kindness, even towards those we find unlovable or from whom we feel disconnected. It is a practice to cultivate our coexistence as people. Some of us love our mothers a lot. Just wanted to acknowledge that. Oh, I also wanted to, sorry, I wanted to say this and then I forgot to say it. Because I know there's some firefighters here, and some of us who've been at Tassajara for the Wildland Firefighter Retreat is not this winter, this retreat, but the one before, Caroline Meister was the acting director, and she's the young and really wonderful practitioner who fell off the waterfall and died. And today is the 1-year anniversary of her death. So somehow that somehow when I said mother, and it felt like earth, and there was some quality to her that had that really deep mothering aspect. So let's just want to acknowledge that. We can carry the sense of our common experience of having been born to access this teaching. We each have parents who gave us birth. We recognize them as portals of our coming into being, and we touch the source of something sown deep into us that recognizes our connectedness. When we recognize our common birthing, meaningful relationships happen, and superficiality wears away, and deeper, greater love of life surfaces. And then just coincidentally, she talks about the Loving Kindness Sutra. You can tell how happy I must have been when I found all of this. The Loving Kindness Sutra teaches us to love others the way a mother would risk her life to protect her only child. Each of us is capable of suffusing love throughout the world. We were all birthed by the same ancient Mother Earth. And then she says, In Zen Buddhism, we regard ourselves as the child of Prajna Paramita, who is also known as the mother of all Buddhas. You know, in the Heart Sutra, we talk about Prajna Paramita. Did you know that she was a mother? That Prajna Paramita gives birth to all the Buddhas? That this thing that we talk about as emptiness, that sounds really kind of clinical and cold, and maybe is that really she's the mother of all Buddhas. Prajna Paramita is really cool. Prajna Paramita means the perfection of wisdom. We drink her milk of transcendent light, a wisdom that comes from no one and is directed toward no one. Through understanding mother wisdom, the Bodhisattva understands that to ease anyone's individual suffering, we must ease the suffering of all Prajna Paramita's children. This wisdom can bring light to the suffering of homelessness, to the suffering of Zenju's talking about homelessness, but I think sanctuary, we're also talking about people who are without a home country or without a home base or without safety. So then I shared this at the sitting this past weekend. Sherry really liked it, so I'm bringing it forward again because we're talking about light. Covancino says, the main subject, the main purpose of all of this, were you wondering what the main purpose of all of this is to become a transmitter of actual light. Life light. Practice takes place to shape your whole ability to reflect the light coming through you. That to me is to become sanctuary, to become refuge, to become who you truly are. And to generate and regenerate your system so the light increases its power. You ever feel that way? So I shouldn't say this, but sometimes when you're sitting zazen, and I mean, some periods are just hard and distracted, but sometimes you really do just sit. I can just, or just moments where you just feel like you're like a little light machine. It's like, I mean, it's called enlightenment. You're just sitting here, just being the light that you are. And I think we know that in each other when we meet it, you know? I mean, it's just a moment where there's a moment of kindness, or there's a moment of connection, or just out of nowhere, like a spring blossom, or like the daffodil is something happens and the world lights up, and you just know the truth of interconnection. It's just the truth of it. It's just that most of the time, right, we're walking around in our own little bubbles and we're completely convinced of it. And the world doesn't feel, you know, that we got light. But to become generators of light, Thich Nhat Hanh says, your true home is in the present moment. And Zenju says the home he speaks of is not only in time and space, it is in your heart. Your heart is a light, love generator. Is there peace, loving kindness, and warmth in your home? How's your home? How's your heart doing? Is your home with you wherever you go? Here's what Zenju says about true home. True home is not an object to acquire or item to check off a to-do list, nor is it a marker of enlightenment. Our true home is in this moment, and this moment is passing, and we are changing. If there were no change, none of us would come into being. Home is a groundless force of nature that transforms our existence. It might appear that some people are stable in their homes while others are not. In fact, neither is stable. True home is impermanent. It cannot be possessed. Only a true home can come into being, arises, and ceases to be a true home. The earth displays its ever-evolving nature, making any home momentary. Right now, you are home and at home. Can you feel that? Home. This experience is not based on an external condition. The experience of home can disappear in any moment. That's probably why we get so uncomfortable when we see homeless people, or when we see what we're now calling aliens, or immigrants, or whatever names were is makes us a little nervous. But true home, what is that? And how do we be that? And how do we keep coming back? And how do we cultivate that so that that light and that love is someplace we can keep returning to and actually help the whole world return to? For millions of years, change has dissolved bricks, cracked stucco, rotted wood, destroyed walls, and eroded mud and straw. Yet we continue to take refuge in churches and temples and mosques and synagogues and sweat lodges and monasteries and caves and sacred circles and front porches and backyards and kitchens and jungles and rivers and oceans and mountains and rivers. And according to many sages, we have nowhere to go and nothing to do. We are just this. Refuge, in Buddhism, the word actually translates as to fly home to. So sanctuary and refuge is just right here, moment after moment. Dogen says of refuge, they are the triple treasures. I take refuge in Buddha and Dharma and Sangha, which is really to take refuge in the Buddha nature, the true nature, the light of everything. That is the final place to rest. I wanted to read you Rhonda McGee, who's an African-American mindfulness teacher, talks about refuge. I wanted to share with you what she says about it. To seek refuge is to look for a place that is safe, a place we can rely on. It's what everybody wants. It's what everybody wants. To practice in this tradition, whatever the particular sect or stream, is to embrace the practice of taking refuge in the three jewels, Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. I take refuge in Buddha, the one who shows me the way in this life. I take refuge in Dharma, the way of understanding and love. I take refuge in the Sangha, the community that lives in harmony and awareness. To practice meditation and the allied disciplines is to experience refuge, the sense of being engaged in a reliable way of being with reality. Isn't that great? That's what we're doing when we're sitting. We're cultivating a reliable way of being in relationship to reality, a way of coming to terms with the true nature of our existence, all in an effort to experience liberation from suffering, from thinking that we're separate, and all the stuff that falls out of that, to keep flying home to a deeper, more interconnected home that's here. Ayakema says, Iakema is a Theravadan nun. We studied her in the past, I think. Iakema was amazing. She was a German nun who she established monasteries all over the place. Here's what she has to say about this. We can be whole only with a heart united in love. True love exists when the heart is so broadly trained that it can embrace all human beings and all living creatures. This requires a learning process that is sometimes hard, above all when someone turns out to be very unfriendly or unpleasant. No. But this condition can be reached by everyone because we all have the capacity for love within us. The more we remember that all our heart has to do is love, the easier it will be to distance ourselves from judgments and condemnations. But that doesn't mean we can no longer distinguish between good and bad. On the contrary, we have compassion for those who act in a way that does harm. We are all looking for an ideal world, but it can only exist in our own heart. And for this, we have to develop our heart's capacity so that we can learn to love independently. The only thing that matters is to incline one's own heart to love. We love for the sake of love, and so we succeed in fulfilling our hearts with love, and the fuller it gets, the less room there is for negatives. We have to act like every mother. She loves her children even though they sometimes behave very badly. We can make this sort of approach our goal and recognize it as our way of practice. So I thought I would share. We did this on the weekend at the retreat, but Zenju's prayer for all beings, which feels to me like sanctuary. It feels like refuge. It feels like home to keep coming back to. It feels like it's not easy, but we also know it's true. So here's Zenju's loving kindness chant for all beings. May all beings be cared for and loved. Listened to, understood, and acknowledged despite different views. Be accepted for who they are in this moment. Be afforded patience. Be allowed to live without fear of having their lives taken away or their bodies violated. May all beings be well in their broadest sense. Be fed, be clothed, be treated as if their life is precious. Be held in the eyes of each other as family. May all beings be appreciated. Feel welcomed anywhere on the planet. Be freed from acts of hatred and desperation, including war, poverty, slavery, and street crimes. Live on the planet housed and protected from harm. Be given what is needed to live fully without scarcity. Enjoy life living without fear of one another and being able to speak freely in a voice and mind of undeniable love. May all beings be awake. Here's a koan. The Buddha was walking with the assembly of monks. He pointed to the ground and he said, "This spot is good for building a sanctuary." And Indra, emperor of the gods, struck a blade of grass in the ground and said, "The sanctuary is built." And the Buddha smiled. The Buddha was walking with the assembly of monks. He pointed to the ground and he said, this spot is good for building a sanctuary." And Indra, who was head of all the gods, picked up just a simple blade of grass and put it in the ground and said, "The sanctuary is built." And the Buddha smiled. When we establish sanctuary from a place of maturation, the gateway opens wide no matter where we are. The sanctuary is built. It's right here. It's right. We are tied not only to the elements of fire and water and earth and air, but are free in space and time and place. This transformation is dependent on understanding we have a karmic conditioning, and we're also free from it. It's tied to, you are a person, I am a person, we have karma, we got lots of ideas, we got lots of this and that, and we're also simultaneously completely free. We can just pick up a blade of grass or anything in each moment. And this is sanctuary. This breath is sanctuary. This life is sanctuary. We are light and we are love and we are deluded. And the sanctuary is right here in the center of it. The path of finding home in the context of freedom is to see and engage both. This is Sandokai. This very human particular life and the causes and conditions and everything that's happening in the world right now. You can't ignore it. You can't go over it. You can't go under it. It's right here. But if we don't know sanctuary, home to come home to, home that is the heart that's big enough to include everyone and everything, that's what bodhisattvas know. A sanctuary within and without, where complete refuge is possible and true home can come into being. Yadagiri Roshi said, living in the world, seeing the total picture of beings interchanging one with the other. If I say I simultaneously, the other's life is there. I say I simultaneously, the other's life is there. So I really like that koan. You just pick up a blade of grass. You can pick up anything. And the sanctuary is right here. So let's go into small groups. I'll put you some 2s and 3s. And what is the sanctuary that's right here? What's it feel like when you know sanctuary, when you know refuge? Even if it's just an inkling. What's it mean? What's it feel like? And we'll just bear witness to it in each other. Okay? You'll have 10, maybe 15 minutes. Okay?